I told my husband that I stalked him 2 years before I formally met him. His reaction shocked me. I married my husband about a year and a half ago. The first time I saw my husband I was a freshman in high school, he was a freshman in college. He was walking his dog at the park, when he stopped to talk to my brother because they happened to go to high school together. That was the moment I became hooked. That same day I found his Instagram, his family's social media, and also where he lived since my brother offered to walk him home while I tagged along. When I got home that day I knew I wanted him, but I was only 14 while he was 18, so I came up with a plan. I found out his younger brother was only 1 year younger than me and would be attending my current high school. I figured that I had to befriend his younger brother by any means possible next year when he moves up as a freshman while I become a sophomore, and I did. It took around halfway of my junior year where we became best friends and he invited me over regularly to his house to hang out. This is where I was able to befriend my current husband's mom, and God did she love to talk about him. From her, I found out what college he goes to, his past girlfriends, what his elementary and middle school was, his favorite and least favorite foods, his pet peeves, what he likes, etc. Eventually when my visits started getting more and more frequent, I formally met my current husband again. Current husband, I'll call him E, would come over every other week and stay for either Friday through Sunday, or Saturday through Sunday. On those days specifically I would wear my cutest outfits to impress him, and also joke around with him a lot. Eventually I befriended him as well. A little background on E, he is the school record holder for a certain sport at my school, which I just so happened to do. And around halfway through my senior year he came back during the season to help coach the current high school athletes, which included me, in order to get some more volunteer work hours in, and I got to spend a lot more time with him. I loved every second of it. We were friends before, but then we became much closer since I got to spend lots of extra time with him after school, where sometimes he would even drive me home since we lived relatively close. Fast forward to when I had to move away to NYC for college, he moved with me since he coincidentally got a job near my college. I lied, it wasn't a coincidence. I found out he got a job offer and applied to a college nearby his workplace. Being each other's only friends in a new state, we became incredibly close. We started dating when I was almost in sophomore year of college, and he proposed to me after I graduated. We just got married almost a year ago. He knows absolutely nothing about how I truly know him, and believes it is fate that brought us together through his younger brother. More recently I had been debating on whether or not I should tell him, or at least his younger brother the truth, since the only reason I befriended him was to get closer to E. I feel guilty every time he tells others our love story, because the truth is, I've known him for 10 years, while he's only known me for about 7. I decided to tell him everything this 4th of July. After the fireworks mostly ended and we were heading back, I asked him in the car, wouldn't it have been weird if we met each other before the first time we actually met? But we just didn't think of each other as significant at the time? He smiled and laughed and turned to me saying, that's impossible. There's no universe where we would have met and I would not think of you as significant. That statement struck me in the heart, because I knew I would soon prove that sentence very wrong, but I continued on with my plan anyway. What if I told you we have met each other before? Before that time I was introduced as E's little brother's friend? He looked at me like I was crazy, so that's when I pulled over on the side of the road and pulled out my phone to show him a long note explaining everything. I realized that sounds like a dumb way to tell him, but I wrote it down so I could get all my thoughts out the way I wanted. He took about 8 minutes to read the whole thing, and when he finished he put the phone down and stared straight ahead, almost like he was dumbfounded, scared, and confused all at the same time. I started throwing out every excuse and apology I could muster at the moment for about 15 minutes straight when he decided to tell me to stop, and I did. Then he just sat there and sobbed uncontrollably for about 10 minutes before he finally asked me how much of our relationship, and how much of my identity, was fabricated according to his liking. I told him the honest truth, none of my personality or identity was fabricated for him, except for the fact of how we met. The only thing I ever changed about myself to make him like me more was lying about liking Chinese food. I hate Chinese food. But other than that everything else was real. Although my friendship with his younger brother was built upon ill intentions, my friendship between his brother and I is now one of the most genuine friendships I have now. He just cried and told me that he did not want a divorce at all, but he did want us to have some time apart so that he could absorb the truth that I gave him. He also said that he expected me to tell his brother and mom this Friday because they deserve to know the truth just as much as he did. I told him okay, and we drove the rest of the ride home in silence. When we got home he hugged me and cried for about 5 minutes before he got out the car, packed his stuff, and said that he will be staying at a nearby hotel for now. He said that he knows that he still loves me, but did not yet know how to react to the fact that the beginning of our relationship was very, very orchestrated. At that moment I thought that telling him was a success. I honestly didn't know. He sent me a good night and I love you text last night while he was at the hotel, so I guessed he was not as mad as he may be betrayed. Woke up this morning to find out that hubby not only lied about going to a hotel to stay at, but also lied about not wanting a divorce, through a text message. He went to his family's home, not a fucking hotel. Told them the entire story himself, probably exaggerated it too to make me seem crazy. His whole family wants nothing to do with me too, claiming I'm psycho. He said that he lied about going to a hotel, because he knew if he told the truth I would try to stop him. Honestly I feel so betrayed. I tried to be a good wife by showing him the true me, and this is what he does? I did all this work just for it to end up like this? Honestly, I kind of deserve it. I didn't even tell him in the first place because I felt bad. I told him because I had a suspicion that he was catching on to the fact that I knew him for 2.5 years before he knew me, largely because I found out he was keeping my old phone in his work desk. My old phone that has screenshots of a lot of his old Instagram posts, plans in my notes app about him, etc. So I guess he never truly loved me if he can't even get past an honest confession like this one. I might update this in a few years when I find a new husband, but for now, this is where that story takes its end. My husband cheated on me 10 years ago. I've been slowly plotting his demise ever since. I have been married to my husband for 20 years now. We have 2 kids. My husband is what I would consider a high earner by middle-class standards. 10 years ago, and by complete coincidence, I found out that my husband has been cheating on me with men even before we got married. We live in a smallish town in the south of the USA. Him coming out as gay will have consequences. I believe that is the only reason he has not come out to anyone. First, here's how I found out he was cheating on me. He got sloppy, left a credit card bill, for a secret card, in the pocket of a coat. While going through it I found all the telltale signs of infidelity. Payments to a hotel in a nearby county, restaurant bills, gifts, flowers, lubricant, etc. I started camping outside the hotel on days he told me he would be late, and I saw him bringing different men there. I am very good at compartmentalization and have a great poker face, comes with growing up in an abusive household, so I was able to give myself the time to cool off, and to come up with what I should do. First thing I did was get an STD panel, since I didn't know how safe he was with his partners. It came out negative. Then I convinced him that we should use condoms, since I was having side effects from the pill. He was okay with it. I had a long think, and I came up with the decision that I was not going to confront him, nor was I going to leave him. He was able to provide me a really good lifestyle, one that I would never be able to afford with my high school diploma, a cleaning lady, a nanny to help with the kids, regular spa days in a country club, a new car every other year, luxury family vacations every year. He was a good dad, a good partner, the cheating aside, and really good in bed. But I was not going to let him have a single guilt-free week in his life. That would be my revenge. I started small, planning great date nights for us, telling him that I felt our relationship had cooled, that I wanted the spark back. Then I would sometimes slip into conversation some tea about a cheating husband, a gasped gay man that has been using his poor wife as a beard, complimenting the only gay couple we know for having the courage of being real men, who were out and proud of themselves. On the other hand, I would praise him as the perfect husband to anyone and everyone, especially if he was in earshot. The amount of guilt gifts I got was astounding. The man was even sending me flowers weekly. It continued the same way for years. I could literally see how much it was weighing on him. Me? Well, my parents were part of a commune with the concept of free love. I was the same. I just considered myself in an open marriage. It seems that cheating is easier to ignore if you are not that big on monogamy in the first place. And my husband was keeping me satisfied, so I felt no need to find a partner of my own. Then 4 years ago, I guess he met the love of his life. He started seeing just the one guy. I was seriously thinking of ending the whole thing, especially since I had started a business by then, and was able to bring in enough money to support myself and my kids, while maintaining my lifestyle. But then he went and introduced his side piece to us. He fucking brought him into our house, introduced him to our kids, and that was enough for me to keep tormenting him. Apparently he was a new friend he made while golfing. He started hinting at moving to another state, one where it would be easier for him to come out. I refused. I told him that my business was here, and I was not going to start over in another state. Also, the kids had their friends and extended family here. It would be unfair to uproot them. Then he started trying to start arguments. I guess he wanted us to fight, then for me to ask for a divorce. I just stopped all those arguments in their tracks. I would just agree with whatever he said. He was right, I was wrong. And to make it up to him, how about a nice dinner and some great sex? He hated that. I knew from spying on his phone that having sex with me felt like cheating on his new boyfriend. The audacity of this man. I also knew that his boyfriend was pressuring him to leave me almost every day. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He started drinking, and when it got too heavy, that was when I decided that enough was enough. I wanted to ruin his life, not his health. Also, I grew up with an alcoholic father, and did not want that for my kids. So I gathered all the evidence of his infidelity over the last 9 years, photos with different men, conversations, his Grindr profile, even though he no longer had one, pretty much everything. Then I hired a divorce attorney, and mailed the evidence to his employer. He has a morality clause in his contract, and adultery breaks it. All his relatives, including parents, as well as our church, I was never big on religion like him. It was like a bomb exploded. He was fired, the congregation turned on him. For cheating, not for being gay, let's keep that straight. I would never allow my kids to be part of a church that discriminated against their father. Even if he was not out, his parents wouldn't take him in after I kicked him out, and he was shamed publicly because we lived in a small town. And the cherry on the top? His boyfriend ran out of the town, and he couldn't follow him because he wanted to fight for custody of our kids. Now almost a year later, I am a free woman. I got to keep the house, my car and my business. He got 75% of the retirement and investments accounts, but he won't be paying alimony. I got full custody, he got visitations. I also got child support. He had to move 6 hours away to find a new job. Couldn't put the last job he worked at his whole life as a reference. His relationship with his family is rocky. His reputation in town is ruined, so he can't move back anytime soon. The love of his life left him for good. My kids only tolerate him because I did my best to shield them, and to tell them that he is still a good father to them. I also made sure to treat him politely, never talked bad about him, and had a lengthy talk about how their father being gay is okay, it's who he is and that it was not his fault. The only wrong thing he did was hiding it from me. So I guess the result of his cheating was years of guilt followed by a ruined life. When did you realize the man you were marrying had a dark secret? Have you ever felt the weight of a secret? That's how the story of Jenna, my beloved sister, and Rob, her now infamous fiancé, felt for me. Jenna and I grew up in Sterling Heights, a picturesque town that seemed untouched by time. Think cobblestone streets, kids playing hopscotch, and the golden aura of sunsets lasting a tad too long. Our childhood home, an old Victorian with blue shutters, was the backdrop for countless memories. Inseparable since birth, Jenna and I had built an empire of shared dreams. We would sneak into the attic during thunderstorms, snuggling in blankets and making up stories about pirates and far-off lands. Our favorite was about Captain Bluebeard and his quest for the heart of the sea, a mysterious gem with untold powers. Then, Jenna went to college in Boston. I remember the day she met Rob. He was in her political science class, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a confident stride. To the world, Rob was the quintessential gentleman, polite, accomplished, and attentive. But every time I saw him, a chill ran down my spine. I couldn't put my finger on it, but my instinct screamed that he wore a mask. Jenna's tales of college became Rob-centric. I missed her. I missed us. One summer evening, we sat by the lakeside, our toes touching the cold water. With hesitance in my voice, I told Jenna about my reservations regarding Rob. She exploded. Our emotional exchange echoed across the still lake, ending with her words, "Stay out of my life." The months following that lakeside confrontation were a blur of regrets and missed opportunities. Sterling Heights, with its sun-kissed evenings and the comforting hum of cicadas, suddenly felt alien. The house with blue shutters, once a sanctuary of memories, stood as a silent witness to our broken bond. As autumn leaves carpeted our hometown streets, whispers floated around that Jenna and Rob were now engaged. It was Mrs. Collins, our next-door neighbor and town's primary source of gossip, who couldn't resist sharing the news. Jenna showed me the ring. "Dear," she said, her voice dripping with a mix of enthusiasm and pity. "Quite a rock. But, it's strange. I haven't seen an invitation for you." I tried to push past the hurt, but it gnawed at me, like a persistent itch. And then, one cold evening, an unexpected letter arrived. No return address, just a stark warning: beware of Rob. He isn't who he claims to be. Every fiber of my being resonated with the anonymous message. Driven by concern and a thirst for the truth, I took a bold step. I hired a private investigator to dive into Rob's life. Every week, I'd receive bits and pieces about him. Stories from his past, tales of changed identities, and hints about a life skillfully kept hidden. Yet, even as this unfolded, Jenna's wedding preparations progressed at full speed. I'd hear snippets, the selection of a vintage lace gown, flower arrangements, and rehearsal dinners, but what pained me the most was the realization that I might not be there on her most special day. One fateful day, the investigator handed me a file. It was thicker than I expected and bore an ominous weight. As I turned through the pages, the horrors of Rob's past unfurled. There were mentions of financial fraud, ties to underground syndicates, and most shockingly, a previous marriage that had ended under mysterious circumstances. Armed with this information, a storm of emotions brewed within me. Do I confront Jenna? Do I alert the authorities? Or, do I, out of sheer desperation and love for my sister, take matters into my own hands? Amidst these whirlwind thoughts, another realization hit me. The wedding was just a week away. For days, I grappled with my emotions. The weight of the information I held was tremendous, but the fear of losing Jenna completely stopped me in my tracks. A plan began to form in my mind, a delicate dance between exposing Rob and ensuring my sister's safety. The town was crowded with wedding excitement. Invitations had been sent, RSVPs received, but none had my name. However, news of a secret envelope being mailed to all the guests reached my ears. This envelope contained select excerpts from Rob's past, his shady financial dealings, a photograph of his supposed ex-wife, and rumors about his ties with the criminal underworld. The day before the wedding, Sterling Heights was cloaked in an air of palpable tension. Conversations in local diners, parks, and stores invariably veered toward the mysterious envelope. Who had sent it? What did it mean? The murmurs grew louder. As I had anticipated, Jenna confronted me. Her face was a canvas of emotions, anger, hurt, betrayal, and beneath it all, a flicker of doubt about Rob. In our parents' living room, with its memories of happier times, we faced off. "Did you send these?" she demanded, tears streaming down her face. "No," I replied calmly, "but I did hire an investigator. I needed to know if my feelings about Rob were justified." Handing her the thick file, I added, "This is everything I found." She hesitated for a moment and then began to read. Hours seemed to pass. The room was thick with tension, only broken by Jenna's occasional gasps or murmurs. Finally, she looked up. "What do I do now?" she whispered. "We confront him, together," I said, squeezing her hand. Dawn was breaking as we reached Rob's house. Surprisingly, he let us in. In his living room, under the harsh scrutiny of the morning sun, we laid out the evidence. Rob's mask of charm and sophistication crumbled. But instead of confessing, he laughed, a cold, heartless laugh that sent shivers down our spines. "You think this will stop me?" he sneered. "Everyone has a past. Yes, I made mistakes, but I love Jenna." The standoff was interrupted by the sound of sirens. Blue and red lights flashed outside. The local police, having received an anonymous tip, which I later learned was from the private investigator, came to arrest Rob for his alleged crimes. The wedding was, of course, called off. It took time, but Jenna slowly pieced her life back together. We both did. Our bond, which had been strained to its limits, began to heal. The sprawling Victorian house with blue shutters became our sanctuary once more. In the following years, Jenna transformed her pain into purpose. She started a foundation to help women who've been deceived in relationships. I, finding a newfound appreciation for truth and justice, became a detective. Sterling Heights, with its undying charm and timeless sunsets, remained our anchor. Our tale, filled with dark secrets, betrayal, and redemption, became a testament to the town's resilience. And as for Captain Bluebeard and the Heart of the Sea, well, that story took on a life of its own. It became a published book, with Jenna as the author and me as her inspiration. We realized that every storm, no matter how dark, eventually gives way to clearer skies. And through it all, we had each other.